Zillow's monopoly in the real estate industry has resulted in reduced home affordability, unfair destruction of competition, all while Zillow pays nothing in federal income taxes and continues to use its power to destroy competition one industry and one company at a time. And while in the past, I reviewed individual actions by Zillow, today I want to take a 30,000 foot look back on their effect on the overall economy of the real estate industry and why it's detrimental to the American real estate industry. I'm Bill Gross, and this is my weekly real estate market update. Now, just a quick overview on where the market is. And in any economy, you have two parts. You have supply and demand. Demand is impacted in real estate by interest rates and by supply by inventory. Let's take a look at the interest rates real quick, because some big news there last week. Rates jumped up to 7.24% was the close on Friday. That's up about 1 full percent from our lows in September, maybe a little bit over 1%. That's up from over 0.5% from just in December, about 0.25% in the last couple of weeks. And so hardly reported. Not sure what's driving it. A lot of factors internationally going on right now. We're kind of hitting now the high point of where we've been over the last couple of years, and we're starting to enter an area that the increased interest rates will start to affect buyers' ability to buy properties. So as we look forward, we might see changes in the market, though our statistics are, as of today, are looking backwards. So again, watch those interest rates, and that's a significant jump. Now, rates are more volatile when they move like that, so that could mean this beginning of a move forward higher. It also could mean that it jumps back. So we want to pay attention to that market going forward. Now, on the supply side, which is inventory, how many homes are for sale, that continues to drop, which is normally seasonally. This time of year, less houses on the market. And if you take a look at the number, other than the COVID period, the lowest all time in history by a long shot for this time of year. So very low inventory nationally. And these are national numbers, not so much local, but nationally, even if rates go up, we will not see dramatic price reductions because there's not enough houses for prices to go down. We might see a softening of activity, which is what's been continuing to go on because of housing affordability. But we won't see our individual houses crashing in price. That does not seem to have the possibilities. Now, Los Angeles, as of Friday, was a market rate at 36, which is about where it's been for the last last 6 months or so. During the pandemic period, it had been as high as 38, 39, 40, more of a seller's market. It remains a slight seller's market, less so than, say, 6 months ago, but still a seller's market. Now, this obviously does not take into account the fires that just happened and the impact of that supply, both supply coming off the market, there were homes for sale that burned up. I have a listing I didn't get that burned up, as well as people now who are displaced, and many of them will look for a new home in the area or rebuild. So all of this is subject to change in LA. Not sure quite yet. I think there's a number of factors to watch. I think the insurance is a ticking time bomb I talked about last week. And if the state can't pay out all the losses, you're going to see some real hardship. So pay attention. But right now, the market overall is still a slight seller's market in the overall picture. Okay. Let's talk about the housing market. Again, Zillow's effect overall. Housing affordability, I took a shot at using AI to tell me, well, what is the housing affordability and how does it compare to, say, 1950? I saw a fascinating picture of a husband and wife with their kids in front of a house in 1950 that he could afford on his job as a manufacturing employee. Mom was a full-time mom staying home with the kids, and they could afford a nice 3-bedroom, 2-bath house in a suburban market in Los Angeles, and that was 1950. In 1950, the average home price was $7,300, which is about $88,000 in today's dollars. And today, the average home in America is $416,000. So home prices have gone up about 370%, or almost 4 times that time period in real dollars, adjusted for inflation. Household incomes have gone up by less. In 1950, the median household income was $3,300, which is about $39,000 in today's dollars. And today, the median income is $74,500, which means that in today's dollars, it's gone up about 87%. So you have houses gone up 370%, and income only 87%. But keep in mind that the household income, half of those households are 2-income families. Not only that, keep in mind that those 2-income families, the second income, somehow money has to be made up to care for the kids. Now, it's true there's some school after programs and such, but for a lot of families, paying for the daycare is a major factor financially as well that makes it hard for them to buy a house. And so all these are numbers that show in reality the American dream died in the 1950s. Now, maybe it can be restored. But the real factor is housing prices got up so much that people can't afford them because incomes have not gone up at the same time in the same amount. As a result, take a look at what's happened to housing affordability. And here's a chart that shows that back in 1980, about 60, 70% of Americans could buy a house. Those numbers went up in the post-crash of 2008 and 9, and then dropped again to where we're back today. We're now back to about where we were in 1984. So we've basically, housing affordability has deteriorated and stayed stuck, and less and less can Americans buy homes as part of the American dream. And that's just a statistical reality. Now, why is that? There's a lot of factors. One is, obviously, the housing economy is broken. Another factor is overall economy. Jobs are going outsourced. Jobs are not going to middle Americans. There's a great article by Paul Zubry's The Daily Listings. I have a link in my show. He lists off different factors about Zillow, what they do as far as monopoly, how they've consolidated all the MLSs. It used to be we had competitive multiple listing services. Now Zillow consolidates them all into one and acts as a monopoly. How Zillow benefited from the settlement. All the realtors got sued and Zillow got off scot-free, and how that benefits Zillow. How they're rolling out automated services, which obviously makes computers compete with human beings and reduces costs in certain markets. And their future expansion plans, not just in markets, but also in different types of homes, mortgages, insurance, and such. So all that, it's an interesting article that discovers those details. I really want to take more of a larger financial picture. Who is Zillow and how they become the monster they are? Take a look at this number. Market capitalization of Zillow is about $16 billion. That's what the company's worth, all their stock. All the real estate companies I can track or identify that are publicly traded are worth about $7 billion. Zillow is twice as much as all of them. Some of these companies, they don't really even compete with. That's why you would say Zillow is the monopoly in the market. This is the company that controls all the other companies. They control the marketing. They control the lead source. They're by far the biggest source of where people go to look for properties. I think wrongly so. But take a look at that number. That number's only grown, that disparity's only grown over time. So what do they do with that power? Well, before we go there, one thing they don't do is pay federal taxes. Now, how long can a company get away with that? Again, they're worth $16 billion, and this is their tax rate calculations and how much they pay. Zero. So Zillow, which seeks to disrupt real estate agents, what a magic trick that is. If they got rid of every realtor in America and every real estate company in America they compete with, who would pay the taxes? Well, not Zillow. And if Zillow did, who benefits from that? Well, one thing about Zillow is they're owned by Wall Street. 95% of their shares are owned by institutions. There's not even any people who are benefiting from it. It's all Wall Street and companies. In fact, the largest shareholder is even American. It's Australian, Caledonia Investments. So you have a non-American company basically destroying our real estate market, not paying federal taxes. And then the other two I noticed, Vanguard and BlackRock, are the same culprits in every kind of bad corporate scheme that destroys the American economy. And they're right there as well. So that's who Zillow is. Zillow is not, an American company. They're at best a Wall Street company that's using technology to capitalize the market. How do they do that? Well, one of their tricks is because they have the entire United States MLS as a monopoly, they have their Zestimate. Are people familiar with that? Well, I find it fascinating when I go to their website. This is their key product, and they admit that for on-market homes, when they can compare and use realtors to use a math factor, the margin of error is about 2.4%. But when it's not in the market, it's 7.4%, meaning they're more accurate by 3 times when they can copy a paper from a real estate agent. That's how good the technology is. For all the money they spent, for all the ballyhoo, all the information, Zillow's way more accurate when they can copy me when they have to do their own homework. That's who's disrupting the market. There's no magic to their Zestimate. There's no magic to their numbers. They've long since lost focus on accuracy. They're more focused on the Zestimate that generates the most ad revenue. And so now they're able to pretend to hide it. They're saying up front, We don't know what the houses are worth. Realtors are way more accurate than we are. Realtors' accuracy is about 2.4%. We do an estimate. And without one, we have to do it on our own. We're 7.5%. And that's who's disrupting our market. Another thing about Zillow is when you're a big, powerful corporation, you can abuse American law to your benefit. One of the laws they abuse is the H1B Visa, which you heard a little bit about a few weeks ago, how that program is being debated. And I think there's several sides to the issue. Originally, it was a program designed to allow companies to fill positions where they couldn't find Americans to do it. And so Zillow, for example, and Zillow is a company where the average employee makes between $100,000 and $200,000 a year. No, that's not quite right. Yeah, that's about right. So that's about average. But when they go outside and look, and they filled up, I asked, I searched on how many engineers, technology employees they have. There's no way really to break that down out of their 8,000 employees. But you can see each year they hire hundreds of people from other countries. Hundreds. And these are people who are picking cherries in their fields. Zillow's hiring people. They're paying the average $175,000. So they're paying the foreigners more than their own average American employees. And you might say, well, these are hard jobs to find. Well, not really. The jobs they're finding are the kind of jobs that, those of you who have kids who are getting jobs in college, you want to see them get. Senior software development engineer, applied scientist, data scientist. All these are jobs that friends and family members who have kids who are going into college and graduate school are looking to get into these kind of fields. But instead of hiring them, Zillow can pay less by hiring cheaper engineers in India and China. And they'll say, well, we can't get them in America. Well, the truth is they can. They just would have to pay more. And they don't want to pay more to Americans. Keep in mind, they're not paying taxes. They don't want to pay Americans fair wages. They want to pay low wages to Indian and Chinese scientists to avoid paying Americans fair wages. And so you can see how many jobs that they're outsourcing that otherwise you might think would be great jobs for Americans. Now, another argument they make is there's not enough people for these jobs. In days of old, companies that were worth billions of dollars like Zillow used to sponsor high schools and colleges and create training classes and technology schools to help create more employees into their labor stream. And you would see major colleges had engineering departments named after chairs of companies. But instead, it's much cheaper just to pay off politicians, get H1B visas, and buy foreign employees. In many cases, they actually support foreign technology schools. Because if you can get a technology employee at a 20 or 30% discount, that's big money to a company like Zillow. So again, they're not paying taxes, so they're not supporting the education system. They're also not even paying fair wages to compete for the jobs. They're taking the cream of the crop jobs that they're hiring for and using the government, misusing the H1B visa program to say, well, we can't find Americans those prices, so we want to go outside to China and India to hire those people. And as a result, we lose. We lose coming and we lose going. And that's the nature of a company that's not invested in America. It used to be big companies. You had an owner, you had the face of the company. Even Facebook, you have Mark Zuckerberg, for good or bad, under pressure to try to act like he's following laws. Famously, Elon Musk, Twitter, and Tesla, and other companies. You have the head of the company who is trying to put a good face on to do well, be a good citizen. Zillow, basically their CEO is anonymous in a sense. And it's because they're owned by Wall Street and they're owned by an Australian investment company primarily, or the largest shareholder. And so they can undermine our country. Now, another statistic I saw on the same website, and I don't really want to get into politics, but I did find this outrageous, was that Zillow's employees, 96% are Democrat, registered Democrats, and only 2.9% were Republican. I thought, if you were head of HR and that was your job to make sure that of your employees, 96% were Democrats, how would you do that? You'd acquire registration information at the hiring, I guess, right? Some people change. I'm open to the possibility that 3% of people may have changed both ways, right? But 3% of people might have gone from Democrat to Republican. Well, we know it's not more than 3 because they only have 2.9% of all their employees are Republican. And you look at their management donations, all to the Democratic Party. So what's happened is Zillow has really just become an arm of the Democratic Party. They are using the Democratic policies. They're in California. They're not paying, they're in Seattle, Washington. They're not paying federal taxes. They are advocating policies, the DEI policies we talked about in the past. They're talking about climate change, that people are buying houses based on climate change, which is crazy to promote that nonsense, I think. Not climate change nonsense, but the idea that people would buy a house based on that is nonsense. They're pushing the rent rather than buy house concept of the government and the Democratic Party. They're pushing buying houses closer to mass transit, which nobody I know wants to take mass transit and wants to live in a high rise next to a metro rail. People want to have a house and a car, but the government's pushing it, and Zillow is one of their arms. And we've talked in the past about the Zillow using the megaphone of their news to repeat misinformation throughout the economy. So the fact that 96% are either party, to me, is troubling. Either party. It just says that they've become an advocate for a certain set of policies, which is fine as long as you're paying your fair share. But when you're not paying your fair share of taxes and you're destroying other competitors and using your monopoly power, now you've crossed, in my mind, a few lines that make you a company that's competitive to companies really destroying our economy. What do you think? Again, not to be political, but just notice how everything lines up on one side. And what is Zillow doing? They're worth $16 billion. Besides their shareholders, who is benefiting from all that? Are the customers? I don't think realtors think much of them other than the few that pay for their service. So I'd love to know what you think. Put your comments down below. And I know this is a riskier video for me to do, but I think overall Zillow has really done a lot of harm to our economy, continues to. I do hope either some competition comes to them or government regulators look at them as a monopoly and try to stop them from using that power to everybody's detriment. I'm Bill Gross, at Bill Gross Probate on social media, and I'd love to find out what you think.